And welcome everybody to the Huddle. Well, take two. Welcome everybody to the Huddle, KGUN9's weekly streaming sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris, who I believe is by the University of Arizona near Casino del Still Stadium, and that's because Pat has a special guest. Pat, good afternoon.
Jason, just as soon as you came to me, I lost the sound. So I don't know what happened. I heard the opening of the show play, and then I lost sound. But real quick, I'm here interviewing Barrett Baker about the game coming up. Obviously, here's Barrett Baker. We're talking Holiday Bowl. I'll ask him a couple questions real quick, Jason, and then I'll send it back to you. But we're here talking to Barrett because as soon as we heard they were going to the Holiday Bowl, of course, Jason, we knew that it's 27 years ago, that 1998 team. There was your special teams captain for the Arizona Wildcats, Barrett Baker, and a lot of special memories of that game for you.
David and Goliath, defending national champions with Nebraska. We had a special season, obviously, finishing the regular season 11-1, thinking we were going to go to the Rose Bowl.
Right.
And so, how do you refocus, and then how do you knock off something like that? And Coach told me the one thing, right? Not today.
Not today.
Not today.
The N on the helmet for Nebraska.
And that's how he was able to get 100 guys that were ready to, battle, kick, scratch, whatever it took to get the win after 60 minutes. And what an awesome memory.
Yeah, it was. And, there's a lot of parallels in ways. It was a defining moment, that 1998 team that kind of put the Arizona Wildcats up in an upper echelon of teams. And with the 10th win this year, that's a big step in the right direction. We know they did it 2 years ago, but that was a different coach, a different coaching staff. And as quickly as things change in this game right now, this is a big step for them.
Well, you said it, Pat, because a year ago, coming off a 4-8 season, and where was Arizona football? What were people talking about?
Yeah.
Now we flipped that, and to be on the cusp of one of only 4 teams that has been able to get 10 wins, that's historical. And for the kids that are on the team and the coaching staff that's been able to flip it that quickly, it's exciting. And as an alum, that's what we want every year. Yeah. We want Arizona football to be talked about on a national level. We want the kids to be able to have pride. And Tucson does a great job of really supporting the Cats. But they do it when we're winning.
Yeah.
When we're winning, because everyone likes to win.
Everybody likes to win.
I think Coach Brennan obviously is a special person.
Yeah.
He's done a great job of bringing the team together. We will be there on the 2nd, cheering as loud as we can.
Yeah.
And hopefully this is, again, a historical team.
Absolutely. And before we let you go, we've got a lot more to talk to you about, and we'll bring that to you as we get closer to the bowl game on January 2nd. When the announcement was made, the first thing we thought of with Brent Brennan was that Brent Brennan was in the stands in 1998, the older brother cheering on Brad Brennan, his younger brother. What were your memories of Brad's spectacular catch in the end zone we've been talking about?
Well, 12-13 was a magical combination, many times.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point in time, we needed a spark. Nebraska was ahead. And as they've talked about before, that wasn't necessarily the route that was supposed to be run. They had that chemistry. And so to see Keith laser that thing in, and then Brad, have the hands that he didn't drop anything. His triple knee pump celebration. Yeah. It was just an awesome experience. And, you can really, 27 years later, remember specific things. That was one of those things to remember.
Yeah, it certainly was. Great catching up with you today, Barrett.
Pat,
all right. Thank you very much.
Down.
Thanks for joining us here on the Huddle as well. All right, there's Barrett Baker. We're going to move our position over a little bit. Jason, I'm going to try to listen to you as well. I know that this is.
All right, I think we lost Pat's sound there, but that was Pat with Barrett Baker. He was a special teams captain of the 1998 Arizona Wildcat football team that went 12-1 and defeated Nebraska in the Holiday Bowl. Arguably the best Arizona football team ever. Was coached, of course, by Dick Tomey. Brent Brennan, the current coach, was actually not a part of that team. He became a graduate assistant at Arizona in the year 2000, but definitely a lot of ties to that team, and from he's a disciple of Coach Dick Tomey. So Arizona football has been to the Holiday Bowl 2 other times. Both were against Nebraska. Wildcat fans remember that game at the end of the 1998 season because they beat Nebraska and it capped off the fantastic 12-1 season. But I don't think too many Arizona Wildcat fans remember 2009 when they rematched against Nebraska, because actually the Wildcats lost 33-0 to that game. That was a Nebraska team that was led by Ndamukong Suh, and they defeated Matt Scott and the Wildcats in that 133-0. So, but this is the third trip for Arizona to go to the Holiday Bowl, and it's one of the more prestigious bowls. It's a January bowl. It's played on January 2nd, and it's a well-deserved game for Arizona football after the season that they've had on a 5-game winning streak, and the Wildcats looking to win their 10th game of the season. It would only be the 5th time in program history that they've won 10 games. So always great catching up with members of the 1998 team. And I think we're joined again by Pat, who's got the audio working again. Pat, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? He's still kind of working on
Jason,
that.
now we got a airplane flying over. Let's just say this. It's been fun talking with Barrett today about, the comparison between that team of 1998 and now. And I think we all can, in hindsight now look back and say that 1998 team was the best team in Arizona history, at least that I believe. And now we're looking at a team that, they're not on that quite that level, but I think that 1998 team was the benchmark, and every team wants to try to catch back up to that team or come close to that team. And this team, in its own right, with, as Barrett mentioned, with a 10th win, can certainly, put its name in a very, very unique place in Arizona football history. And I for one, I'm looking forward to the game on January 2nd against an SMU team that we don't know a whole lot about. But the bottom line is Arizona keeps playing the way they've been playing. They've got an excellent chance.
An SMU team that was in the college football playoff last year, leading the ACC in a passing. Let's take a look, Pat, at our Huddle poll question this week. It has to do with bowl games. And what's the best college football bowl name? The Pop-Tarts Bowl, the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl, the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl, or maybe another bowl? So actually, Pat, this wasn't the original question that I put in there. My question I put in there was which was the most obscure bowl, with some of the sponsor names that maybe aren't household names. But this is the one we're going with. What is the best college football bowl name? I don't know how you can argue against the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl, but maybe there's another one in D that you could be thinking of that you also you can write in on X. You can write in, if you think another bowl has got a good name. And so, okay, we lost Pat. Okay, hold on a quick second here. Okay, just for fun, I was going to go with which is the most obscure bowl, which was the Staff DNA Bowl, the 68 Ventures Bowl, the Game Above Bowl, and then there was the Union Mortgage Home Loan Gasparillo Bowl for the most obscure bowl name. But we're going to go with this one. What is the best college football bowl game? Of course, I'm voting B, the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl. And I actually think it's kind of cool that we have a national sponsor for our bowl game. And we did even before Snoop Dogg. Remember, it was Barstool Sports and a little bit of the controversy that entailed there. By the way, you can vote on X. But before that, we had some local sponsors. I believe Nova Home Loans was a sponsor. And then there was one in between. I forget now. Not a household name, but I think it's great. The Arizona Bowl is kind of what do they say? Punched above its weight. It's only been around for a decade or so. So you could kind of be pessimistic and say it's a third tier bowl game. But what it's done in its history has really been terrific. And it doesn't sell out Casino del Sol Stadium, but it's got a nice atmosphere. Tucson during the day this time of year. The weather is fantastic. It's a Mountain West team against a MAC team. And Wyoming's been here a couple times. They travel really well. And so this year it's going to be Miami of Ohio going up against Fresno State. One of the storylines is that Fresno State has a player in Rayshawn Luke who used to play for the University of Arizona and actually played in the Snoop Dogg Bowl. And the bowl chairman, Ali Farhang, actually said that was part of the consideration of choosing Fresno State. So Miami was here last year. They wanted to come back. They are the defending bowl champions of the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl. It's actually the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl presented by Gin and Juice by Dre and Snoop.
That's right. That's right.
The full name.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
So,
And
by the way, go ahead, Pat.
I was just going to say, let me get my 2 cents now that I've got this audio thing figured out and we're set again. Of the ones you've listed, I don't think there's any question. And I know I'm biased because I'm standing right next to Arizona Stadium, but I do think the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl with the Dr. Dre Gin and Juice connection, I think that gets the most attention. I really do. I think people, it used to be the Pop-Tarts Bowl. People thought that was interesting and that was great. But I think for sheer name recognition and like make people stand up and take notice, I think it's a Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl.
What about the Duke's Mayo Bowl with the mayonnaise?
Yeah, well, that's always been interesting, I know, but no, it's fun, it's funny, but it's been done before.
So at the Holiday Bowl, they actually dump eggnog over the coach, Pat.
Yeah.
Brent Brennan didn't know that.
Where did that start? Do we know?
I don't know. Probably from the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Maybe. I'll have to look because that didn't happen to Dick Tomey in 1998. So it has to have been more of a recent thing. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do a few minutes here on Arizona basketball, and we'll circle back to that Huddle poll question. Arizona basketball now ranked number 1 for the second straight week. Pat, this is a complete team. I mean, they are overwhelming opponents.
Yeah.
Now, they're not the dominant number 1 team in the country. Michigan is right there with them. You can argue Michigan's resume is just as impressive. I don't know that Arizona would have beaten UConn in that game on the road had UConn had its starting center. So it's not like, they're far above anybody else in the country. There's some other great teams. But it almost gets to a point in the game where they start to overwhelm their opponents, and they're doing it on both ends of the floor. And there's so many statistics and things I can point to. How about this one? Only 4 turnovers against Alabama that tied the program record for fewest turnovers in a game.
Yeah, that second half was one of the greatest second half performances, or half of a half performance you'll see in college basketball today. I thought it was complete on both ends. Alabama, who we know loves to shoot the three, couldn't even attempt the three for a long stretch to start that second
that was half. Pat, that was the best 3-point defense I've seen them play in the second half of that. I've never seen Tommy Lloyd's team play that type of 3-point defense.
So a couple of things
after Alabama got 7 quick ones.
Yeah,
something changed.
So it did, because the same thing that changed when Arizona played UConn, they did it the second half against Alabama, at least in that first part of the second half. And that was they stopped the switches. Because when you switch, a lot of times you leave a guy open, right? You leave that 3-point shooter open. So they stopped doing that. And when they stopped doing that, they had more success in limiting Alabama's attempts at threes, let alone makes at threes. And it's that kind of coaching. It's not just Tommy Lloyd. It's all of his assistant coaches that come up with those game plans. And I thought that the adjustment they made at the second half was phenomenal. And I thought the way they played, that's the kind of game, that's the kind of performance you have to have in a second half to win those kind of games in the tournament as well. And that gives me a lot of hope. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. They're not winning the national championship just yet. There's a long way to go. But they play like that in the second half. If they play like that more and more throughout the rest of the schedule, Jason, they're gonna be a tough team to beat.
How about this other statistic? According to Ken Pom, and for those who don't know, that's kind of like the analytics of college basketball. Toby Awaka is the best offensive rebounder in the country and the best defensive rebounder in the country.
So he's averaging the best rebounder.
He's averaging 10.6 rebounds a game, and I think he only plays 21 minutes a game.
Yep.
I mean, this is like Dennis Rodman type of stuff.
It really is.
And what do you think has changed with Braden Burries? I'll just throw a stab at it and say he needed to adjust to the speed of the college game. But what do you think has changed from the kind of how he looked in that opener against Florida in Vegas, where he really didn't look that great, to the last 4 games where he's averaging 20 points per game?
It has to do with the speed of the game and getting used to it. I think you're right, but I think another part of that is anytime you're tentative in this game, guys are going to eat you alive. And he was tentative early on, especially against the better teams. And I think it has to do with confidence, and I think it has to do with his game coming around at the same time. And you have to believe that you're as good as you are. And it certainly helps to get results. And as soon as he started getting results, then that just kind of fed off itself. And that game, that second half that he had, where he was just, calmly bringing the ball up and stopping from 3 and burying it, You don't get much better than that. That was about as good as you're going to see, let alone a freshman, any player to kind of take over a game like that. When you've got a Braden Burries that can do that, you've got a Jaden Bradley that can do that and has done that, and you've got a Koa Pete who right now just needs to stay out of foul trouble in the first half. That's his biggest problem. Otherwise, you're definitely seeing you're seeing the maturation quickly from Braden Burries for sure, and now we need to see some maturation of Koa Pete to learn how to stay out of the foul trouble, because that's what those teams that they're playing are going to try to do now.
If you had told me that Koa Pete and Jaden Bradley would have been on the bench in foul trouble, and the roster without those two would have done what they did, would have been hard for me to believe. I still don't like sitting people with foul trouble. I know it worked out for him. I don't think those players do any good on the bench. I would just play them and hope they don't get extra fouls. We've done that before. We don't need to rehash that. But if you had told me that Pete and Bradley, who are their two best players, have been at least for the first 8 games before this one, if you had told me that they would have been in the game on the bench with foul trouble, and the other players would have done what they've done, and here's the stat that goes to that: 6 different players have scored 20 or more points for Arizona this year.
Yep, and I think that's what gives you confidence in this team. And it gives me, it further adds to the confidence I already had in Tommy Lloyd. And that is, Tommy Lloyd knows his players so well, and he's been working certainly in practice, and then you see it occasionally in games with different combinations of those. I know it's only really 8 guys, but he works with different combinations in practice and in games, so that if you have to sit a couple of guys because of foul trouble, you don't really miss a beat. And they certainly didn't miss a beat against Alabama at all. I was so impressed what they were able to do, as you mentioned, with your 2 best players sitting on the bench.
Okay, Pat, we're going to have some fun here at the end.
Okay.
Which bowl game is not a bowl game and I just made it up? The Staff DNA Bowl, the 68 Ventures Bowl, the Union Home Loan Gasparillo Bowl, or the Game Above Bowl?
They're all made up. No, I'm kidding. No, they're not. But they all sound made up, don't they? They all sound made up.
Which one is made up? Staff DNA Bowl, 68 Ventures Bowl, Union Home Loans Gasparillo Bowl, or the Game Above Bowl?
Boy, see, I haven't really studied them. So you got me on. You're stumping me in this one. I'll just make a guess. The last one.
No, they're all real bowl games. You know what? So the point I was making earlier when you were off was, I think it's neat that we have a national sponsor for the Arizona Bowl.
Yes.
Even when it was Barstool, I like having the national sponsor. I think it makes the bowl seem bigger than it is.
There's no question, because when you talk about, whatever this Holiday Bowl sponsor, or as the what bowl, the Gasparilla Bowl,
Union Home Loans Gasparilla.
Yeah,
I don't know what Gasparilla is.
And
but we had Nova Home Loans as our bowl
there's
sponsor.
no question.
That's great as a first sponsor, but if you're going to be a big time bowl, you got to have a national sponsor.
Now, there's 2 ways you can look at that. Nova Home Loans is a tremendous company here in Tucson, homegrown company with local people running it, so it gives them a name to sponsor here. But you're right, it doesn't.
Casino del Sol is doing, because now when Arizona plays, let's call it Cincinnati, and people in Cincinnati hear Casino del Sol and they come to Tucson, whether they're going to vacation or what have you, it'll ring a bell, which is what they're trying to do. Desert Diamond, I'm sure, would want to do the same thing.
But you're also not going to get the same dollar figure, you wouldn't think, from a Nova Home Loan sponsoring here as you would Gin and Juice by Duran Snoop, or the Pop-Tarts Bowl, or the Tostitos Bowl. I mean, it's definitely to me, you're right. It was Barstool, now it's Snoop and Dr. Dre and Gin and Juice. I think it's the way to go, and I think it elevates the profile of your bowl just by name alone.
Yeah. By the way, I love the apricot gin and juice. I'm sure all the flavors are good, but apricot.
You told me that one was good, and I tried it, and it is very good.
Oh, you did? Good. Okay. I don't think we've talked about
No, that was I tried several of the flavors on my off time, obviously, at home, and and they're all good, but I did like the apricot one a lot. Yeah.
Terrific. Are you working next Tuesday?
I believe I'm working next Tuesday. Yeah, I'm working next Tuesday. You want to have a
so
show
we might
next
be
Tuesday?
back.
I'll
We
be in
may or may
studio.
not have a huddle. Well, our producer Ryan may not be working, so we'll see about next Tuesday.
We'll see.
We only do 40 of these a year, and we've already passed 40. So if we're not. And by the way, just for everybody, we are going to be back next year. We are signed, sealed, and delivered for next year. So, Pat, I was thinking, I don't remember starting the huddle. I clearly remember the huddle in March of 2022 when I was freezing cold outside and we were on our way to San Antonio.
Yes.
But I believe that was at least our second year. I know we started it during COVID.
We did. It was probably in
2021. 2021 was our first year.
Yeah, it was. I think that's right.
I think it's something to celebrate. A lot of things don't make 5 or 6 years, Pat.
No, they don't. Not anymore. So we'll be in our 5th year, I think, starting next year. Awesome.
No, I think 6th.
6th year. Okay.
I think.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
We're into our 6th year.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching.
Let's look at the poll question. Did we get a results or anything with the poll question?
We did. We don't have as many results as we normally have because we introduced it later in the show.
Oh, yeah. That's my fault.
Not your fault. What are you apologizing for?
We had Barrett Baker on. Barrett's a great.
Yeah, we don't want to make Barrett sit through the Huddle poll question.
No, and Barrett, a lot of people, because he's a fire chief, he's a battalion chief, so people know that in Tucson Fire. But Barrett was the special teams captain, and you see him lifting that giant, and that's a giant trophy, the Holiday Bowl trophy. He was one of the 3 captains hoisting that trophy that day, and it's a memory he'll never forget. That memory us Wildcat fans will never forget either.
Yeah. Although I wouldn't, when you're talking about comparing Arizona teams, I wouldn't compare this team to the 98 team. The comparison.
No.
Is this team to the 2023 team?
Yes. No, and I wouldn't compare it that either. My only comparison is we always have to look at a 10-win team is the one you have to that's the starting point of how good a team is, because there's only been 4 to this point. This could be the 5th, right? So then we can start really talking about where they fall. But I think that 98 team is head and shoulders above the rest of the teams. I know 5 years earlier they had a great team as well, 6 years earlier. But I think that 98 team beating Nebraska when Nebraska was still Nebraska, that's pretty special.
Yeah. All right, so we'll be on later to talk more about that, whether it's next Tuesday or the Tuesday after that. We still got a couple more weeks to go. It's a January 2nd game. All right, for Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. This has been the Huddle, KGUN 9's weekly streaming sports talk show. We'll see you next time.